Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Sit back, get comfy, and let us start our tale of Nova Vaasa. Nova Vaasa is largely dominated by lack of features. Save for the westernmost regions, the domain is a large grassy flatland, the monotony of which is broken up only by the monotony of a different sort. As one comes across the chorless peasants toiling on the farmlands that surround the handful of rivers rushing to the nocturnal sea. This dry, flat plain fittingly has a dry, flat name. It is known simply as the Wassi Plateau, and it both defines and limits life and culture in Nova Vaasa. South of the Borchava River and west of the Prince Road is the King's Plain. The King's Plain earns its name for two reasons, one historical and one cosmetic. Nova Vaasan history tells that the conqueror King Hodgeplads first marched into Nova Vaasa across the plain in the morning, made camp here in the afternoon, and won the first bloody battle for this land there in the evening. The Wassi Plateau, while the most prominent element of the landscape, is challenged in importance by the rivers, the source of life and the center of civilization in Nova Vaasa. Farmlands stretch for miles on either side of the Wassi rivers. The peasants who work these farms live in squat, round hovels of stone, with thatched roofs made from the long appliance grasses. They are grim, stone-faced lot, yielding rich harvests from the soil only to see most of it taken as taxes by the nearest noble lord. Some of these peasants own the fields they work, but most have been forced to sell them to the nobles to make up for the shortfalls in lean years. Just beyond the farms are horse ranches, each owned by a noble or wealthy merchant. As hard and tiring as the lot of the farmer is, they live in a virtual paradise when compared to the hell endured by those living in Nova Vaasan cities. Given the wide expanse of the Wassi Plains, I would have expected the Nova Vaasans to lean naturally towards open, loosely packed communities. Strangely, the opposite trend developed. Buildings are oppressingly close together, streets surprisingly narrow, and virtually no escape is to be found from the press of crowds. The density of the population combined with poverty to create nightmarish scenes of urban squalor. Away from suffocating cities or life-giving rivers, relatively few people live on the Wassi Plateau. Most of these communities are situated on the springs that are found here and there in the rocks. Such settlements are by necessity as heavily fortified as they can be, for they are favorite targets of bandits who eagerly take advantage of the absence of law. Ironically, the more successful plain communities must eventually call on the prince and his lords for protection, as the bandit attacks increase in size and frequency. Besides the rivers and springs, the only major bodies of water in Nova Vaasa are the Three Sisters, a trio of lakes northwest of where Ivlis and Volgis rivers meet. The Three Sisters are named for a Nova Vaasan myth telling of the first three daughters of the first man and woman created by the lawgiver. The largest and northernmost of the lakes is Lake Nilseen, after the eldest of the sisters, the first woman to tame and ride a horse. The second largest and westernmost of the lakes is Lake Jensen, after the middle sister, the first woman to successfully grow crops in the soil. The smallest and southernmost of the lakes is Lake Vibek, after the young sister, who was the first woman killed and devoured by a plains cat. Charming. The beastwood covers most of the southern Vaasan foothills and has long had an evil reputation. Before the Grand Conjunction, this forest spilled out the untamed wilderness of Markovia and into Nova Vaasa like an unchecked infection. Towering, unnatural beasts, whispered to be much worse than any plains cat, roamed beneath its dark, thick canopy, and those who wandered too close were not likely to have a chance to retreat. Now, tales tell of the creature most often cited, the Centaur, who is said to be a ragged, bony horse with a man's head and a human's arms sprouting obscenely from either side of its neck. Forests such as these serves as heaven for wolves and for men with the demeanor of wolves. Bandit camps are common in these areas, riding forth at night to raid poorly defended farmlands and homesteads. Most of these bandits lead short, desperate lives, but some have been quite successful and become notorious, even celebrated. Like the Blood Cat, believed to be Vistani outcast by the name of Chesna, who has become particularly feared of late. Her outlaw band, active for almost 30 years, used to operate out of the Briarwood forest, but a raid by a group of adventurers under the employ of Prince Ofmar forced them out of the hideaway. Since then, the Black Cat has been constantly on the move, striking vulnerable caravans with increasing ferocity and abandon. Not far from the Mountains of Misery are the Stony Bluffs, three large granite masses that provide most of the Nova Vaasan building materials. The Koshka Bluffs are a pair of smooth stone hills south of Liara, standing side by side with a canyon between them. Quarrying of the Koshka Bluffs have revealed numerous rooms and passages within, and many curiosities and antiques have been found buried inside. Some suggest that Koshka Bluffs were in fact once giant monuments or tombs built by some long-fallen civilization. After workers there began vanishing or going mad in 741 Barovian calendar, Sir Tristan Harrigard greatly restricted the quarrying of the bluffs and have forbidden the removal of any of their treasures. The wicked spirit causing their disappearances was put to rest by a party of adventurers, but Sir Harrigard apparently does not wish to risk a recurrence. The dominant plant species in Nova Vaasa are the aforementioned grasses, which cover the plateau from north to south. Beside the grasses, the Wassi Plateau is home to numerous varieties of wildflowers. A variety of shrubs and bushes cover the landscape as well, and in the drier regions, cacti thrive. The Wassi cat's paw is a particularly dangerous cactus, as it secretes paralytic venom from its spines. This venom is not fatal by itself, but plains cats are fought to frequent patches of cat's paw in hopes of catching a helpless meal. The cats themselves are immune to the ill effects of this poison, more evidence of nature's base cruelty. Any discussion of Wassi fauna must begin with a horse. The quality, quantity and diversity of the horses in Nova Vaasa are astounding. Though most Nova Vaasans are not wealthy enough to actually own one, seeing the vast herds rumbling across the plains, I could not help but feel admiration towards them building inside. The average Wassi horse is deep black in coat and mane, and tall at the shoulder, but distinct breeds among the horses vary from this description. Wassi horses can be divided into 5 major bloodlines, each bred for a specific purpose, be it speed, strength or beauty. While the horse is the cornerstone of Wassi pride, the plains cat crouches at the center of Wassi fears. Plains cats are large felines, superficially similar to panthers in appearance. They tend to be taller at the shoulder than panthers, however, and they have a far thicker musculature. Very rarely, a plains cat with dark red fur will be born in a litter. These blood cats are rumored to be larger and stronger than their kin, and some say they can hypnotize their prey with their golden eyes, fade into invisibility, or even imitate human speech. Nova Vaasans tell tales of many sinister creatures stalking the prairie. Herds of nightmares are said to run across the plateau at night, their fiery manes lighting the darkness around them. Catching a glimpse of them is supposed to herald death or misfortune for the viewer or their loved ones. Finally come the Dode Rider, undead horsemen who silently roam the Wassi Plateau. Dode Rider are thought to be the restless corpses of men and horses who died of thirst or exposure on the plains. Tormented by their lonely, prolonged deaths, man and horse rise again, bonded forever in undeath to wander the same plains forever. The Dode Rider crave living company, but they are surrounded by auras of such fearful melancholy that no living thing can long stand to be near them. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. Nova Vaasa nature is as beautiful as it is deadly, so if you wish to see it for yourself, be careful while crossing the mists.